morning, Nigeria. We're excited to be bringing you Breakfast Central, not from our usual studios, but from Federal Capital Territory, where the Nigerian Economic Summit is happening live. I'm Olin.
And I am Osaogi Obon. And it's a huge pleasure to be in the FCT at this time. We're going to be connecting with our Lagos studio, and of course, bringing you live feed from the Nigerian Economic Summit happening here in the FCT, and we encourage you as always to join the conversations simply with our social media platforms at News Central TV. Let us know your thoughts. All right, the conversations on the Nigerian Economic Summit are going to be centered mostly about inclusive development and many other conversations. We're going to be having some of the top minds concerning Nigeria's economy and of course the economy of the continent here in the FCT this morning. And so it's going to be between Lagos, Abuja, and also bringing you live feed from what the national conversations are as of this Monday morning. We also have, of course, Perpetual Fasomi Peters, who is live in the studio as always, or as we have this morning rather. Yeah. And, so let's quickly start with talking about the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. They started in 1996. Tell us about, their journey so far and what they are really set up, for.
All right, thank you so much. Talking about the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, rather, their flagship is what we're having today, which is the Nigerian Economic Summit. One of the things you get to see about the summit is that it's different from a lot of other summits where we have people talk, private sector-driven conversations, and then you don't have the government players right there, because those are the ones who are going to make the decisions. Those are the ones who are going to ensure that this talk, translates from just talk, from just debate, from just deliberations to policies. And I would like to say that to a very large extent, we've seen that this particular summit has given us that, at a very large extent, some of the conversations that happen, you get to see a little bit of them, policies here and there. But what's interesting about this year is that it is the 30th edition, and that is quite significant. It's significant because we're at a time where we're having a lot of global disruptions, a lot of issues, especially in terms of economy. And right here in Nigeria, we are going through a whole lot. I mean, we've gotten to the point where presenters are getting angry, and walking out of the set, because they really can't bottle things in anymore, And so it's interesting that we're having this summit at this time. And then it's also interesting to know that some persons, the key economic managers of Nigeria are going to be here today. Talk about Wale Edu. I want to hear him talk, and I'm going to be representing every Nigerian out there, because I'm not just here to hear the good things. I'm not just here to hear those policies, because they are going to tell us what they have been doing. But beyond what they have been doing, Nigerians want to know, how has these things, or how have these things you have been doing translated into better lives? How have they translated into, more monies in the pockets of consumers? Wow. Consumers are losing money. Consumers do not have enough monies in their wallets anymore. So we can't continue having those conversations. It can't be a charade. It can't be, one of those jamborees. No, it's not.
No, that won't be the case this year. We're hoping and certain that won't be the case this year, because yes, we can all agree here that the global economies are experiencing uneven growth. Nigeria has its fair share of the struggles, but yes, we see that it's a problem that's spread across board globally, even with, the seemingly high successful economies. The first world countries are also experiencing a number of the struggles that we're experiencing, and there are several reasons, aging population and the likes. But we'll come back to talk more about the Nigerian Economic Summit and sharing into what the themes are, the sub-themes are, what we're looking to see the conversations look like this year. But we're heading now to our Lagos studios, where we have Blessings Mosugo on standby. Good morning, Blessings. Good to see you on the other side.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Osaogi. I wouldn't say I miss you guys in this studio, because it looks like you're still in a very comfy studio. So yes.
Blessings. We're having a bit of a sound challenge, so we're hoping that we can sort that out. But there are many conversations that will be had today, and we're definitely going to be bringing you live updates. But let's talk to you about your expectations from the Nigerian Economic Summit.
When I heard about the 30th, and besides it's a milestone, celebrating 30, it's not just another economic summit, it's the 30th, and I think it started in 1993, and it's been on for a while. And my question is, and I'm sure this is the same question that a lot of Nigerians are asking, is it going to be similar to the climate summits that we all travel to attend every year, but there's little to no change recorded? We've been talking about this over and over again. We've had, yes, and one thing about Nigeria is we're always so quick to reel out accomplishments. The pension reform sector, the foreign direct investment sector, all the sectors will come out to say, oh, when in 1993 things weren't like this, now things are better, which is not debated. But again, if we look at the trajectory of things, just like Perpetual has rightly said, how is this affecting the ordinary man? The common man on the street doesn't care about the economic summit because it's not changing their lives. If the situation keeps deteriorating and we keep having this summit, then at the end of the day, what is the purpose really? So my expectation today is, like Perpetual said, again, I'm borrowing her words, it's not just going to be another jamboree, it's not just going to be another gathering of policymakers, stakeholders, but there will be actual change. And now they say that change does take time, but it's taking too long. Time is ticking and Nigerians are impatient. So I'm hoping for reasonable change this time around.
Absolutely. I mean, I think everyone's on the same page. To see that Nigeria's economy has dipped, from 574 billion in 2014 to currently just below 300 billion dollars. It's not a thing that you would expect to just happen, in a situation where there wasn't necessarily natural disasters. And even in countries that have natural disasters, it doesn't just happen like that. I mean, Lebanon, for example, can argue that their country, the economy has suffered greatly after that, very, very terrible explosion that happened a few years ago. But Nigeria doesn't really have a lot. And if you look at the Nigerian Economic Summit, group, and the summit's write-up, the article, one of the things that they blamed was the pandemic in 2020. But is that really enough? So yes, we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
A lot of talk has been done, but what policies must be implemented? And do we have a government that currently is interested enough in implementing policies that would effect change with regards to the Nigerian economy, and of course, which will eventually spread out to the West African economy.
Right. And just to mention that even, yes, we are experiencing all these challenges, there are still countries that, regardless of, in spite of the challenges that we're all facing, have tried, have taken advantage of the situation to make better policies to advance the state of the country. Case in point would be Rwanda and Kenya. We've seen them implement policies that have further advanced the course of the nation. Are they still plagued with the same challenges? Absolutely. The conversation this year is looking at collaborative action for growth, stability, and competitiveness. And that's the main theme, even though there'll be some other sub-themes looking at what the meaning of inclusive development means, looking at building a secure economy, looking at, several other areas, sub-areas that we'll be exploring as we go on with the conversation. But we're live here at the Nigerian Economic Summit, and from time to time, you hear a lot of the buzzing happening in the hall. But let's connect to our host, our correspondent host, Anchor Joe Hansen, who is here, but in another part of the Nigerian Economic Summit. Good morning, Joe.
Yes, good morning, Olive. Good morning, Osawage. I'm sure you can hear me. Well, it's great to be here. Most importantly, it's 2024, and as you can see, just right behind me, that's the stage, and that's where every single thing will be happening. The conversations would equally hold just right here. Unfortunately, for those who cannot be here, don't worry, we're going to be your eyes and ears. For me in particular, I think one of the very interesting topics that we'll be looking forward to hear and also listen is the one that's got to do with innovation, and most importantly, we'll look at digital economy. A lot of people have talked about how everything is becoming digitized, how everyone is moving from one state to the other. Most importantly, when it comes to investments, don't forget too that the current currency rate is one conversation that I know will come up. Looking at FDIs, foreign direct investments, what the country stands to gain, and we can just rightly say that this is the hub where you would have the stakeholders, the professionals, the experts, where they would speak, and hopefully after we're done on the third day, we would have charted a course forward, or a way forward for positivity, for Nigerians to indeed heave a sigh of relief, and then look forward to implementation. And I'm also looking forward to another topic which has to do with implementation policies, the one that's got to do with policies. It's one conversation that everyone is going to surely look forward to. The policies that we have today, there are conversations that it's stifling the economy. There are conversations that it needs to be a bit loosened so that people can work freely, companies can indeed advance. There's also the conversation on taxation, especially with companies. So the beautiful thing about the NES 30 is that these conversations will be held here, and it's our duty to bring it to the fore and help our viewers to benefit more 100%. But then again, I'm equally excited. It's day one of NESG, that's NES 30 for 2024, and I can say the stage is set. It's remarkable. We're going to have a wonderful time listening, and most importantly, a wonderful time getting contributions from all who would be here for the 3 days. It's back to you, Olive and Osaoge.
Right, and of course, I think you've said it very, very nicely. These are very important conversations. We hope that there's some level of interest also in affecting these policies and in the discussions. If you remember from the last NES, they had discussions on made in Nigeria goods. They talked about the rise in unemployment levels in Nigeria and whatnot. But we've not really seen a lot of change between then and now. And these are some of the things that I'm looking forward to bringing up.
Right.
When we have members from the Nigerian Economic Summit Group join us here on set, we're going to be asking basically what has changed between last year and now, what has changed in the last maybe 10 years, of continuous deliberations. Let's go back to Lagos. Blessings Musugu is still in Lagos. Let's quickly have her share with us, what the top stories are across Nigeria today, aside what's going on here in the FCT.
Many thanks for staying with us. You're still live with us on Breakfast Central. And as Osaoge rightly said, there are some other stories that have caught our eyes indeed, independent of the NESG. So talking about the headline stories, we begin the news in West Africa, Nigeria, where Bauchi State Governor and the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, Bala Mohammed, has urged the factional acting national chairman, Umar Damagum, to restore the party to its previous state. Now, reports indicate that the PDP Governors Forum has scheduled an emergency meeting for Monday to address various concerns surrounding the party's future. An anonymous source revealed that PDP stakeholders are considering the formation of a caretaker committee to guide the party toward a national convention where a new national working committee will be elected. To security matters, the Nigerian Air Force is set to acquire another set of fighter helicopters to boost its combat capabilities. 10 AW-109 Trekker helicopters and 24 M346 fighter ground attack jets make up the new aircraft. Recall that in June, the service said plans to acquire 50 new aircraft to strengthen its operations against armed gangs and terrorists. In a statement on Sunday, Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force, Air Commodore Olusola Akinboyewa, said the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hasan Abubakar, along with officials from the Defence and Finance Ministries, were in Italy to finalize the acquisition of the jets. A federal high court in Abuja has ordered the Central Bank of Nigeria to pay Casmol International Services 579 billion naira for helping the Nigerian Postal Service, NIPOST, collect stamp duties between January 2015 and January 2020. Now, the court also ruled that the amount must be paid with 10% interest annually. Justice Iyang Ekwo delivered the judgment, rejecting arguments from the CBN and the Attorney General that NIPOST lacked authority to collect stamp duties. Still on the headline stories, the Enugu state government has clarified its decision to impose a tax on corpses in mortuaries, saying it is not a revenue-driven move. Now, according to the chairman of Enugu State Internal Revenue Service, Emmanuel Namani, the tax is in line with the mortuary tax law, which has existed for years. He said the tax is only 40 naira daily, not 40,000 naira, and is paid by mortuary owners, not the families of the deceased. The tax aims to discourage long-term storage of corpses in mortuaries, not to generate revenue. A 50-year-old man, simply identified as Emmanuel, has been fatally struck by a moving train near Arena Shopping Mall in Oshodi, Lagos. A Lagos Police Command spokesperson, Benjamin Hundeyi, confirmed that officers from the Mushafejo Division were alerted around 1:33 p.m. local time and immediately dispatched detectives to the scene. The victim's body was evacuated to a public morgue for an autopsy. The case has been transferred to the Railway Police Command in Ebute Metta for further investigation. Let's head now to Johannesburg to see what's happening. At least 7 people have been killed in southwest of Johannesburg after a gunman opened fire before the alleged shooter turned the gun on himself. The most recent in a shocking run of mass shootings in South Africa. Now, according to the police, 5 family members, including a 3-year-old boy, were killed at Mokokotlo, over 40 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, in the early hours of Sunday morning. A neighbor and a family friend were also killed. In a statement, the police said the shooting occurred after a man had gone to a local tavern and, finding it closed, had an altercation with the tavern owner, who then followed him home. Well, that's just about it on the headline stories for this morning. Let's go back to Olive and Osalge in Abuja to discuss more on the NESG. Olive, Osalge, before we continue the NESG conversation, there's still some stories that have also caught my attention, which includes of course, the fuel price hike. So I'm going to ask you, yes, you're taking a break from, the fuel drama right now because you're stationed, but how has it affected you generally?
I would say that on my end it would be a drastic increase in the price of fuel. Fuel prices. So I expressed it last week when I went to buy fuel and had no idea that there was a scarcity already. And then I spent, I think, about 85,000 to fill my car. That had never happened before. So I think we're faced with the reality of what it is now and the fear that it's not even going to end at that, because that was the first day that NNPC had changed their numbers and I bought for 85,000. What happens when by the end of the year, because now Ipman is saying that there's a likelihood that this will last much longer, it might even increase. So what happens when you now need to pay maybe over 100,000 to fill our cars, when we can't even afford these numbers? It's really a scary idea.
I agree. The core with all the discussions, really just a clear sign of mismanagement. I don't think that there's any other words, that I would use to describe it. It's just mismanagement, because of the lack of clarity with many details concerning petrol scarcity. Because, initially, with the start of this current administration, if you remember, the conversations concerning petrol then, with the emergence of the Dangote refinery, some of the promises that were made was that, of course, it's going to end petrol scarcity completely. We're going to have cheaper petrol, even if a lot of people said that wasn't necessarily possible. But it just doesn't make sense to the average Nigerians that you're buying petrol, first of all, in the highest rates that we've ever bought in Nigeria's history. And at the same time, that same commodity is scarce. And so it's mismanagement, and of course, it's also because there's certain aspects of the Nigerian government that don't understand the level of accountability they should be to the Nigerian people. That, for me, is the core issue here. Mismanagement of Nigeria's petroleum sector and lack of accountability to the Nigerian people. Last week, I spoke about lack of, proper communication because of the same accountability. Because we still, as at this point, we do not know for sure how much Dangote itself is selling petrol to the NNPC or to IFMAN. We also do not know. NNPC has put their prices, even when people argue that in a fully deregulated sector, these things shouldn't happen. And if we followed Section 205 and 206 of the Petroleum Industry Act, there are certain things that we're seeing playing out now that should not happen.
Right. We really highlighted a number of these points, and still looking at the grey, blurry areas between the Dangote, NNPC, IPMAN conversation. First, we hear NNPC as the sole uptakers of the petrol, and then much later we hear, independent marketers are free to buy. Okay, so why have independent marketers not purchased? Independent marketers then come and say Dangote is not selling to them. Yeah. If everybody, all the independent marketers can now purchase directly from Dangote, why is that not happening? The role of the agreement that ended between NNPC and IPMAN is also another factor to take into consideration. But then again, it goes back to the conversation about how well Nigeria's oil sector has been managed. Again, we do have a Minister of Petroleum, and he certainly has a number of questions to answer. But I think Nigerians are tired of rhetoric. They're tired of the explanations. People just want to see. People want to see that they can actually purchase fuel. They don't have to stand in queues for hours and pay ridiculous sums to still not be able to buy products that is not available. So it's really a trying time. I can't recall any year that we've had fuel scarcity as bad as 2010. I think so far this has been the worst year in terms of fuel fuel prices, lack of accessibility to product. And what's scary is the fact that Nigerians are not even sure of the next step. They're not sure if there's even a way out of this quagmire.
Yeah, I mean, so it may not, I mean, maybe from your experience, it might be the worst forecasting, period. But I know that there's been previous years, even prior to the...
This consistency that we're having, almost like 2 months fuel scarcity,
Yes, I agree with that.
Another 2 months.
I agree with that. Also because of how much it is selling for, and so, the average person is going to say to themselves that if I have to pay 1,000 naira for a liter of petrol, then you have no excuse why I have to still queue to buy that petrol for 1,000 naira. If you want me to buy petrol for 1,030, 1,060, 1,200 in some petrol stations, then you have no reason whatsoever, for me to have to still stay in a queue for an hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours to buy that petrol. So it goes back again to my argument of mismanagement. And that's just really, the way that I would explain it. There's little details here and there, that you can also point to, but it is simply a sector that is currently being mismanaged without any punitive measures being taken by the Nigerian government that should understand that the Nigerian people are very, very unhappy with the current price of petrol. And as it stands, we still haven't really been able to see a proper breakdown of the landing cost of petrol and, what the cost of production is to defend the price of petrol being 1,010 naira, 1,030, 1,200, 1,100.
Right.
And it's not saying that it should be cheaper. That's not the argument, but at least be clear enough with the Nigerian people to say this is the reason we are selling it at this price. It shouldn't be a mirage. What we have now is our own estimates that Dangote speculation here. Ipman is saying that Dangote is selling at 898 or something like that to the NNPC.
And Ipman is saying that Dangote is selling cheaper. Like the cost that they're getting from NNPC is getting from Dangote is much cheaper than what NNPC is selling.
That's what I'm saying. So Ipman claims that they're buying from Dangote, NNPC is buying from Dangote at 898, and they're wanting to sell at 1,010 or 1,030, and so it doesn't, make a lot of economic sense or financial sense or business sense rather to them for it to be that price. So again, this is not coming from the Nigerian government or from Dangote, it's coming from Ipman, what these prices are, because we still do not have that sincerity from the Nigerian government as it stands as to what exactly the exact price of petrol to defend that price of petrol for the Nigerian consumer. And so it's a complete mess. We also remember a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we spoke about the crude in Naira, agreement, and how that was initially, portrayed as a way to reduce the cost of petrol. Some even said, the petrol price would drop to 600 Naira, maybe even 450 Naira per liter. That was those comments here and there at that stage, but that hasn't changed anything. It seemingly even made it worse. In the conversations surrounding the emergence of the Dangote refinery, pretty much the same thing, the same promises, the same speculations that, once this comes, the need to bring in petrol from, from overseas will reduce, freight costs will be taken out, many things will be taken out, and so petrol price will reduce. But that's not happened. It's instead gotten worse.
Independent marketers have then gone to import petrol at a very ridiculously expensive price. In fact, when Ipman comes to share, they will tell you that a number of their members have borrowed money, has borrowed large sums of money,
taking loans,
to import petrol and now they're stopped because they need to make more payments to the NNPC. I mean, it's really a scary place to imagine where we are and what a possibility of where we might be headed to will be. Just like you mentioned, there's not a lot of clarity regarding Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria and the NNPC and the role that they both played in the current fuel crisis that Nigerians are experiencing. Also, it's regarding the way out of this. You talked about the Naira Mokut deal. That was one of the ways that Nigerians always, that Nigerians had hoped that this would be brought under control. Another way was when Nigerians had hoped that the refinery is working and being, for example, the Port Harcourt refinery swinging into action, being rolled out would have helped curbing this, even though some experts would argue that they don't see the role that it will play and it might not change much. There's that angle. There's also the angle as to whether or not that Port Harcourt refinery is going to even function.
Again, this mismanagement. That's really what it is, because there's no other place in the world that you would have successive failures to launch. Years.
But nobody facing the music. But anyway, we have Ukadike joining us shortly to talk about what exactly is going on. We're on a very quick break, and when we come back, the conversation is continuing. Stay with us.
Well, right now is not the best time for commercial transporters in Umuahia in Abia State capital, southeast Nigeria, following the increase in fuel price. The astronomical increase in recent times means that passengers now do more of trekking and the transporters are bemoaning their financial losses. Well, News Central's Chinwe Ugili reports.
This conductor has spent over 3 hours calling on presumed passengers to come aboard a vehicle to Arachuku with no success. This has become the present reality now in Abia State as the number of travelers reduced drastically.
Since morning, I got motor, this second motor. But all before, by this time, I will reach up to this vehicle. But now, motor and passenger after due to cost of fuel.
The increase in pump price has affected the cost of transportation fares and has naturally discouraged many from traveling if it involves far places and encourages trekking for movements within one's vicinity.
The passengers are not travel as before again. I know before Fumoteju. But the rush nadim. Motor for this time motor 2-3 hours for another motor. The thing when you can use to park it no motor. You have park it.
Some now send waybills to their loved ones instead of traveling to save costs.
But before about 3,500, she about 4,000, but now about 5,000 naira. So when you check here, we can send their ass envelope.
The commercial drivers say their present predicament may not be unconnected with the high fares they now charge passengers due to the amounts of their earnings they spend on purchase of petrol daily.
And this smoker now, he consume well a full of 400 here now, 20,000 naira. How much do you get? Yesterday, 5,000 naira. We anything in there, but every Allah, now. The IMG, you know, Uber 4-5.
The situation has equally forced some people to park their vehicles or even stop their transportation business temporarily because of their inability to meet up with their daily targets. The empty streets and roads of Umuahia say it all. Trekking has now become a new norm for people who would ordinarily board vehicles to their various locations.
Passengers are even photo muscular, so some schools there's a school so how did you feel Naga school as of now?
The situation is such that the transporters who have remained in the business have resigned to fate despite their losses, only with the hope that passengers will patronize them somehow. In Umuahia for News Central, Chinwe Ugili.
Well, that was the situation report in Abia State on the fuel price hike by Chinwe Ugili. You're still watching Breakfast Central. We'll go on a short break now, and when we come back, we continue with more stories.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, it doesn't seem like the drama with fuel scarcity is anywhere over, as Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria say that the rise in the pricing of fuel may, of course, result in scarcity. There's just been a lot of back and forth with Dangote, NNPC, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. And to help us shed some clarity on what exactly is going on and if there really is light at the end of the tunnel is the IPMAN spokesperson, Ukadike Chinedu. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining joining us.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, physically,
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah.
But I think the first question is, this was something that I started with off camera, to say that we're tired. This constant conversations, the back and forth that we're having regarding, fuel scarcity, the rising cost of petrol, is it making any difference?
Well, first of all, I will say that government enact policy, and the people who also propound these policies are eggheads. Sometimes they might not be able to know or have what it takes, or the structures or the institutions for implementation. Now, you have a little lacuna between the policymakers and those who are implementing this policy. The PIA bill was being clamored by Nigerians, and it went to the House of Representatives, it went to the Senate. Everybody was clamoring, and people were even shouting, why Mr. President cannot sign the PIA bill, this one. There was even protests and all the rest of it. People don't know, the intricacies of implementation of the PIA bill. And it has a lot of things to do. Both the structures of an NPC were unburdened. A lot of things were being dismantled and eradicated, so to ensure that the PIA will stand on its own, you understand? Well, I'm not a lawmaker, and I also see that they wanted to deprivatize the oil and gas industry. If you look at our refineries, we can have 4 refineries in this country. None of them is working. Our utilization has failed. I'm not talking about government. I'm not talking about whether the government has failed. No. Our utilization has failed. Most of these refineries have MDs and people that are running it. And I also believe that if you are being given in charge to run some certain, company, you can be able to see how you can be able to continue to manage it. I also remember that even Kaduna Refinery was shut down by federal governments, and what it was also shut down. They were producing, but they were not producing. They were producing in deficit. Whatever they are producing could not be even be able to pay the salaries of the workers. You understand me? So the government shut it down. So, and if you also look at the Indorama, which was petrochemical, that was also shut down by federal government before the Indorama deal came in. The Indoramas came in and decided to revamp petrochemical since over 5-6 years now. Petrochemical in Elime has been working morning, afternoon, night. If you go there, a lot of marvelous things are happening there. And I also want to take a tool from that particular place, you understand me, to look at our refineries. Is it better to privatize the refinery and give it in the hands of either the Indoramas or people who know how they can be able to manage this and maximize the potentials of this country?
Yeah, but so the challenge with that is, even when you say that, even if the Nigerian government wakes up tomorrow morning and says they're going to privatize refineries, or in fact, they're going to make all refineries work, there is already a huge lack of trust, between the government and the people, mostly because promises were made before the emergence of Dangote refinery that it was going to reduce the cost of petrol, and in fact, the crude in Naira sale, was also one of the things that they promised, but none of that has worked. So selling the idea of privatizing refineries might sound good, but it will take a lot of other details here and there to ensure that it actually does bring some positive result. But I want to talk about the current reality.
Okay.
Nigerians are experiencing petrol scarcity across the country, in parts of the country rather. There's still no clarity as to what exactly the cost of petrol is, so a price of for a liter of petrol. So clarify with us, why is there petrol scarcity, and what exactly should petrol price be at this point?
Okay, I want to clear one particular. There's no petrol scarcity for now. There is supply. There is supply of petroleum products.
Okay,
it might not be adequate, but there is supply. But the problem we are now facing with is price disparity, and that price disparity cannot surface scarcity, because when you go to where the price is cheap, you understand, you will see long queues. But where you say the price is high, There is no queue, or you might have a ghost queue, you understand me, around the filling station. So if the price disparity is being closed up, if the source of this petroleum product is being open, is being liberalized, like the market's supposed to be liberalized. If this market is being liberalized and Dangote, like I keep on saying, is selling to independent marketer who has the largest majority of, why are we round tripping? Why are we withholding this liberalization policy? You understand me? They say there's this willing buyer and willing seller relationship. Yeah. I agree that Dangote is a willing seller.
Is it man a willing buyer?
Me, as a spokesman of Ipman, I have vehemently stated clearly that we are a willing buyer.
So why is there no sale?
You understand me? So the synergy is what we are trying to do. It was last week, maybe around Thursday, that the director of DSS, after watching most of our series of conversations here in this studio and in our rise and all, and I keep on emphatically telling the federal government that they should allow Ipman have a shot at Dangote's product. Because it started like a joke. Dangote said they are going to sell to only federal government. Federal government said they are going to offtake. NMP said they are going to offtake Dangote's product. So what are we doing? Are we no longer players in the industry? So there's a little skirmish relationship at the beginning of Dangote rolling out his trucks. The first 300 trucks was sold exclusively to NMPCL, without the price unknown to us. We made attempts to be able to reach to Dangote. We also made attempts to go with our trucks to buy products from Dangote. But all those things were being bluffed. We were not given access. It was around last 2 weeks that we were able to sit down with Dangote and also express our willingness, you understand me, to offtake these products from Dangote. Now, in the sense of it, if NMPC offtakes these products, they will sell to DAPMAN members, which is the people that own tank farms here and there, you understand me? DAPMAN members will store in their tanks, relax, then start selling to their filling station, take it to their filling station, because they will not sell to us first. Most of them have some skeletal filling stations here and there. They first of all sell to their filling stations. Then when after some time, they will now sell to their cronies. Those their cronies will now sell to independent marketers. You see the round tripping.
So this thing,
the price then,
the price will be going up.
So this is exactly what's happening.
That's not exactly what. This is where we are. We are deep soaked into this. This is not only in our neck, but into our nose. And that is why we started shouting. So when we went to the director of SSS, Mr. Ajayi, who invited us, and listening to this our story, you understand? I know that, there's a problem somewhere. How can NMPC be selling their product 998 naira in their filling stations? And now, in turn, want to sell 1,040 naira to independent marketers. So is it not better we'll take our trucks to their filling stations and now load from their filling stations? You understand me? Than going to their tank farms to go and load.
So just to be clear, who's stopping Ipman now? Is it Dangote's refusal to sell directly to Ipman, or is it NNPC blocking Dangote from selling to Ipman?
It was NNPC that had a pact with Dangote that they are going to offtake their products.
But that part's not ended.
No, it has ended.
So why
No, it has ended.
between the point where the pact has ended and now, there hasn't been anything.
In how many days? It's just like some few days ago. So that's like last week that they come openly. And I said, okay.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes, that Dangote should say to everybody. So now the authority chief of NMDPR, yesterday, through the intervention of the director of DSS, you understand me, now decided that they are going to give bulk purchase agreement to Ipman so that Ipman can offtake from Dangote. You understand? That was what we just achieved on Thursday. If
Ipman is taken directly from Dangote, what is the expected price for the consumer? Now
we are expecting that before Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll sit down with Dangote. You understand? And Dangote will give us their own price.
Okay.
Because that price now, up to now, is not known. We are hearing 898 naira. Dangote is saying it's not possible that NMPC is buying product from them. So the price is not clear. It is until we sit down with Dangote, and Dangote will give us their own template or their price range, you understand me? Depending on which depot we are going to load. Because the problem before they were saying they're not going to give Ipman to offtake is that Ipman does not have depot. We have acquired depot.
Okay, so we should expect to see a difference between now and when?
We sell cheaper than an NMPC.
Okay.
we're going to sell cheaper than an NPC. I stand firm to say this thing. Because even when an NPC was, when there's adequate product, the NPC was selling 195 naira. We independent marketers, we are selling 192, 193. Go to our filling station, our girls, we are dancing, our pump attendants, we are dancing for you. They were cleaning your glasses, they are even touching you with cap and soap so that you can patronize us.
I remember that.
Do you understand me? We want to return on an investment. This is we use it to train our children. We're not government workers. We're not NPC staffs that they're being paid salary every month. Okay. My salary depends on how many jerrycan of petroleum product or how many cars I will sell in a day.
Okay. Is there any attempt? I mean, competitiveness is one of the conversations that will be happening live here at the Nigerian Economic Summit. So, is there any attempt to stifle that? And how can we encourage competitiveness with Nigeria's petroleum sector?
Well, that is not the liberalization of the market I have earlier stated clearly. You understand me? Now, this is Nigerian Economic Summit. Independent marketers, I don't even think that we are part of this summit because I wonder, we drive this economy. I want to tell you the truth. Sure. Independent marketers will drive this economy. There is nothing that happens in Nigeria that does not happen via the pumps. This is the only message. Sure. So, you see the pump.
The mobility of the
yes, not even the mobility. Sure. If you everything that drives this economy is that pump that we are holding and we are selling into your cars, we are selling into your generator. We can also communicate with people. We feel the impact of the people. We can be able to give back that impact of the people via our communication channel. You understand?
So, if someone asks you, would you say that there is still a cabal in the oil sector?
Well, for now, before I would say yes. Before I would say yes, there might be cabal that was different tripping during Jonathan period. You understand me? Those cabals still exist, and they're also trying as much as possible to do one thing or the other. You understand me? To be able to continue to hoodwink this downstream distribution chain and be able to modulate it the way they want it. You understand? Now we're no longer importing petroleum products. So before, when we are importing petroleum products, we are buying petroleum products 750, 650. Now that we are no longer importing products, the issue of vessel, the issue of Ukraine war, the issue of war in Iran and all the rest of all those ones are gone now. Now the refinery is here, Dangote is here. It is a stone throw. Our daughter vessels can take products from Dangote. It will not be a huge cost again. All these costs should be, shrinked and be able to give service to the people.
So the cabal that used to exist no longer.
I think Dangote has eradicated them, and they are still kicking. When Dangote came in and did his diesel 1,000, we are buying diesel 1,800. People was almost going to 2,000, and that inflated transportation.
Okay. We'll come back to this conversation, especially because now that you have boldly said that you will sell cheaper than NPC, I wonder if you worry about what the implications of that might be. But let's head over to Joe Hansen, who is still here on standby to bring us live updates from the Nigerian Economic Summit. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Olive. Hello, Sawage. So I'm outside, just exactly where the delegates will be walking past, and they're going to see every single thing ahead of time. But most importantly, let me quickly share with you what we're expecting. Although I did hear Mr. Okadike there, the IPMAN spokesperson, say that IPMAN ought to be here to also be part of the delegates who would be sharing the most important thing all Nigerians need to know, especially looking at the fact that premium motor spirit or petrol is very important in the aspect of every Nigerian's daily life or living. But let me share with you as well that today collaboration will be a major conversation here. I'm outside and I can tell you that everywhere is looking a bit dry and scanty. Delegates are starting to arrive in their numbers, but very little for now. Don't forget, today, day one, the event kicks off at exactly 9 a.m. That's the time when the event will begin. But before then, we can see cars are driving by. This is a drop-off area where people will be dropped off, and as soon as a space where delegates would have to register for those who haven't. But the beautiful thing about the NES is that we are going to have a plethora of speakers, leaders, captains of industries, not forgetting to decision makers. The Vice President is expected to be here as well. I'm talking about Honorable Kashim Shettima. He's expected to be here. He's supposed to be here because the President, that's President Bola Tinubu, will not be able to make it here today. Of course, we know that he's on vacation. So most importantly, that's the reason why you would have the Vice President here. We're also expecting other ministers and not forgetting honorable members who would equally join the NES 30. It's going to be a wonderful time. We're looking forward to see what the 3 days would bring. Hopefully, it would yield positive fruits that would eventually will eventually put Nigeria in the map where we ought to be. But not forgetting one important point. The important point I wanted to make is that I did hear Ipman, a spokesperson, say they ought to be here. But it's good that we have him on News Central. So possibly he's here with us live at NES 30. And would like to implore him to also join the conversation by attending and also get to listen to what is on offer. It's back to you guys as I look forward to go around and bring to you more updates on the happenings concerning NES 30.
Thank you very much, Joe. Very important point that he's highlighted there, Ipman's participation at the Nigerian Economic Summit. And also, I know that for a long time now, you've advocated for the government to involve Ipman in conversations that surround petrol, fuel, and, pricing. So talk to us about Ipman's involvement and, maybe how important it might be before we come to you will sell NNPC, you will sell fuel cheaper than NNPC quote.
Well, we are talking about competitiveness and stability. You understand me? And as far as this economic summit is concerned, Ipman at the forefront of competitiveness. Let me take you down the line. When the federal government during Obasanjo's regime decided that there should be indigenous marketing. You understand me? And the proponents of independent marketers, it was an edict passed by the federal government in their House of Representatives that there should be an indigenous marketing. Because before it was the IOCs that are doing filling stations here. They explore, they refine, they also distribute, they market. So with the indigenous people, we are not given an opportunity to even, sell the crude that's been harvested in our it has been explored in our land. And they said, okay, there must be independent marketers, and we are formed. And from just a very humble beginning, you understand me? We have grown to a robust strength. I still want to tell you that in Nigeria today, we control the highest employment force. I don't think there's any, apart from government institutions, I don't think there's any other association in this country that have the kind of workforce we have.
Yeah.
So why would they be doing an economic summit without involving Ipman?
Well, I mean, you do have a strong...
I'm not talking about this. Okay, look at our investments. In the nooks and crannies of this country, there is nowhere, if you go to Ilorin, you will see an Ipman. If you go to Buguma, you see. If you go to Dananacha, there's no place in Nigeria that you go, you will not see, even if it's a small independent marketers filling station.
Which is why we're glad that you're here.
Rendering service to the people, ensuring that people don't travel so long to get petroleum product. The federal government should applaud us.
But the good thing is that part of the sub-themes, or one of the sub-themes of this year's conference is, fostering stakeholders collaboration. So you are here, you are a stakeholder with Ipman.
Yeah, and it's not official. How can I come into a conference like this and jump into the window?
But you know how stakeholder collaboration happens. Yes. You attend and then you build a relationship and you foster conversation.
How can I do? Because if I say anything, my conversation will not be recorded because I'm not a part of the district.
The platform that you're currently on
already
brings you into it, so you don't necessarily have to be on stage at the end.
No, I'm not talking about stage. I'm talking about recognizing the potentials of people, man.
No, I totally understand that.
The economy of
that is the importance of the platform that you're on now. Because the message that you are sharing now is also going not just to NES, but to the country, at large. So again, you may not be on stage, but this platform that you're currently on is as well as being a part of, the NES for this year.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I want us to once again be clear on statements that you made, because I think that this is the most important part for the average Nigerian. Ipman promises to sell petrol cheaper than NNPC, but it's still dependent on what Dangote sells to Ipman. Am I correct?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. And you don't have any, rough estimate of what Dangote's price might be? Where,
No. For now, we don't have. Maybe before the end of this week, we will get, because the authority chief of NNDPR has also intervened and promised independent marketers. Right. You understand me? That is going to give us an off-taker license to be able to collect products directly from Dangote. It was a very wonderful one. We also appreciate him. He went further. These are the people who knows this job. You understand me? Who can feel the traces of the people. He even went further to say, Ipman will give you import license. It hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
All right.
Now we will have import license. We will also have a license to be able to off-take from Dangote directly.
And then sell to Nigerians cheaper than NNPC.
Now,
and then do you fear that there'll be a pushback on that once you start to sell cheaper than NNPC?
By the time we start selling, nobody will visit NNPCL filling stations. We'll sell cheaper. Why I say we are going to sell cheaper is that we have our own tank farms.
Yeah.
Now, the trucks is our trucks. We own the trucks. Because it's a prerequisite that before you become an independent marketer, you must have one truck, at least one truck or two. You understand? And I want to tell you today that independent marketers have the highest trucks in this country.
But is this not counterproductive for the outcome that the average Nigerian is looking out for, which is some sense of stability, availability of product, and reasonable pricing? Because if there seems to be some competition, that it looks like it's Ipman against the NNPC, don't you think that would be counterproductive?
It is no longer Ipman against NNPC. There are so many other competitions. The DAPMAN members are there.
Yeah.
The MOMA members are there. Major marketers are there. You understand me? So the race is open. Once they blow the whistle, everybody will take off. Both the MOMA member, both the DAPMAN member, both the IPMAN members. You understand me? We're all taking shots from Dangote. We don't want somebody to buy from Dangote, sell to DAPMAN will buy, sell to their brother Ografo. Ografo will buy to their brother Musa. Musa will now come and sell to independent marketers. I will not sell 1,300 or 1,400. People will say we are greedy. They will be shouting in our pubs. They will be harassing our staffs. Even police will harass our staff that we are selling above pump price. Even without knowing that this market has been liberalized. Well, you buy as you sell.
Yeah. The thing is, at the end of the day, we're following up. We know that there'll be a meeting with Ipman and Dangote, and we look forward to seeing positive results. Definitely. And that positive result that Nigerians will be happy with, that we'll see reasonable pricing and availability of products. Okadike, it is absolutely a pleasure.
You're welcome
to meet you and to finally have a conversation with you. We're going to break now. When we come back, we have more conversations. Stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us. Don't forget, it's still the special broadcast on the NESG Summit. But we'll be taking the papers now, looking at the headline stories across the board. And the first paper we're starting with is the Daily Times. Now, the major story you see there this morning is Obasanjo urging the leaders to utilize Nigeria's resources judiciously. If you ask me, that's a little too late, but that's Obasanjo's message to the leaders this morning: utilize Nigeria's resources judiciously. And he also laments that we squandered God's gift. And he says he firmly believes that God did not create Nigeria to struggle. Then at the top of the paper, you will see SPDC JV partners sign landmark GSPA for $3.3 billion BRAS project. And all of these you can find on the volume 5 of the paper. Then underneath it, you would also see the federal government unveiling strategic blueprint to address health sector challenges. And that is found on page 4 of the newspaper. So obviously, there'll be an improvement in the health sector. Then on page 2 of the newspaper, we would also see a confirmation of the disbursement of 38.7 billion naira to 774,593 nano businesses. That's, of course, the small or micro businesses on page 2 of the newspaper. And then looking back at the Rivers political crisis, we see that there is a threat to democracy based on the crisis, and that must quickly be resolved, according to Okupe on page 3 of the newspaper. Still on Daily Times, we see under Tinubu would reverse growing unemployment rate. Shetima vows. That's also on the Daily Times newspaper. Now, that's all we can take for the Daily Times newspaper. But then moving on, we have the Punch newspaper. And on the Punch, page 8, we see Dangote will be meeting marketers on Tuesday over the new petrol price. This has gotten a lot of people questioning and waiting to see what the verdict will be. But yes, we're expecting a meeting between Dangote and the marketers on Tuesday. And on page 56 of the Punch, we have Benin Togo owing Nigeria $5.7 million electricity debt, according to the NERC. Then on page 59, PDP crisis, Damagum camp, anti-Wike governors may clash today. And that is also regarding the crisis. That's also linked to the crisis in River State, as you very well know. Then on page 28, Obasanjo again reiterates that God did not plan for Nigeria to suffer, and that's quite obvious to every Nigerian, if you ask me. Then import duties on page 8. The federal government may ground 60 private jets today, being Monday. And then top bank chairman, business moguls affected. NAMA gets the list of affected planes. So we're expecting that there may be a grounding of 60 private jets today. Then underneath the paper on page 13, the federal government and Italy is set to finalize talks on 34 new fighter jets. And we hear that some of our reps are already in Italy to finalize the purchase of the fighter jets. And if you remember, some jets were also acquired earlier this year that led to a bit of speculations about mismanagement. But according to the government, that was clarified to some extent. But I don't think Nigerians would 100% agree with that. But yes, there is a finalization of talks probably today, latest tomorrow, and that can be found on page 13. Now, on page 53, we see that the price of cooking gas jumps to 1,500 naira. And on page 4 and 5, the NDLEA nabs Thailand returnee with 3 billion naira drugs. So on page 59, which is the last story that we'll be taking on the Punch, Obaseki Okpebholo's transition panels discuss handover today. So we're seeing a handover of the discourse between Obaseki and Okpebholo's transition panel today. And then moving on to another paper this morning, we'll be looking at This Nigeria. And on page 26, the SEC says $50 billion is required to fix the infrastructure deficit in Nigeria. All right. Then on page 4, we also see that the contract staff practice by banks obnoxious. Then on the same page, we see financial experts insisting that 70% of casual workers in sector are unacceptable, and they urge critical intervention by the CBN labor. So apparently they're saying that 70% of the bankers are majorly obnoxious, or on their character or attitude is unacceptable. You can find that on page 4 of the newspaper. And then on page 6 of This Nigeria, Nigeria did not contest UN Human Rights Council elections, the presidency says, and this is in response to some questions that have been asked regarding the UN Human Rights Council elections. And then on page 7 to 21, the River State crisis, details of Federal High Court and Appeal Court's judgment will be found on page 7 to 21. So if you want more detail or more clarity on the River State, on the court judgment regarding the River State elections, then you can find that. Then final story on the newspaper, on This Nigerian newspaper for this morning, is talking about the local government suffocation, and it says, don't condone governors' excesses, CSOs, lawyers tell the citizens. So basically they're saying that the citizens need to fight back And then they also charged NAS to make law to enforce the Supreme Court judgment. And those are all the papers that we can take for this morning. We took This Nigeria, The Punch, and of course the Daily Times. So we're going back to the live broadcast on the NESG, and then I'll be handing back over to Olive and Osauge in Abuja. Olive, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you very much, Blessings, for bringing us the newspaper front page. It's an interesting update there to see that SEC says that they require $50 billion to fix Nigeria's infrastructure deficit. I know that a number of the conversations will come up here at the Nigerian Economic Summit as we look forward to how we can revolutionize Nigeria's economy. We're joined this morning to look at conversations about what the expectations are regarding Nigeria's economy and the Nigerian Economic Summit. And we're joined by a member of the Board of Directors for the Nigerian Economic Summit. We have here with us. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I mean, you've seen the numbers, the statistics. Where we're seeing Africa's growth rate. Reports have it that there's been a decline in our growth rate from 2021 to 2023. We saw a decline from about, I think, 4.2% to 3.8%. And yes, there are still economies and countries that are still finding ways to make do with all the challenges and still achieve growth. But what would you say your analysis of where we are, Nigeria as a nation, in the grand scheme, where we are today in comparison to where we were maybe in the last 2, 3, 4 years?
Well, basically, people will say things have gone south. What does that mean? There have been complexities that have not received the kind of attention that they require. Take, for example, insecurity and the impact that that is having. I'll give you two life examples. So there's a fisherman that typically would bring fresh fish to us. And suddenly the prices bump up. And I said, "Oh God, what's the problem?" He says, "Oh, the last time we were at sea, one of us was kidnapped." Yeah, real life. We all had to put together money to secure his release. These are common fishermen. Now, that insecurity, what has it done? It's driven a lot of people away from farms. It's driven a lot of people away from fishing. What has that done? It means that we do not have even enough to eat, enough to transport, enough to sell. So you are having issues of our inability to even produce that which we will feed on. What is the impact of that? People are going to run to import in order to substitute. How does that complicate matters? The pursuit of foreign money versus how much Naira is going after it. So now inflation, huge inflation on food. Second, inadequate supply of the foreign exchange that is needed. And then you now discover private sector individuals who have set up industries. They need this foreign exchange to bring in the vital resources that they must use to make their production. They can't get that, or by the time they get it, the price doesn't make sense. And so at the end of the day, they sit down and take a look and say, what have we gotten from our investment? And sometimes when the money is put together, we can't transfer abroad. So then what happens? Industrialists begin to leave one at a time. When that happens, what do you think has happened? We have exported employment, because basically they still continue to sell their products, but then they're not producing them here. And so our people become unemployed. We have the highest rate of unemployment that has ever happened. And then we have these burgeoning youth that are out there who can't be mentored, who can't go to school. Then that multiplies the kind of issues that we're dealing with. So we have serious structural issues that have not been dealt with. Inflation rate hasn't been dealt with appropriately. Then the ability of our people to even find food hasn't been dealt with. Energy cost has gone up, rightfully because, the subsidies have been withdrawn. But all of this require, some cohesion in the management of this. And that's actually why our summit has collaboration as a major aspect of, look, guys, let's sit at the table. Yeah. Executive, let's sit at the table. Judiciary, let's sit at the table. Legislature, let's sit at the table. And then national, sub-national, and even the local government. Everybody has a part to play.
So just quickly.
Yes.
Nigerian Economic Summit has been in existence since 1996.
30 years.
You've had repeated, advisory statements to the Nigerian government and even, to the wider, West Africa. What do you think, right, is failing? We've seen an economy drop from $574 billion in 2014 to, just slightly below $300 billion in 2024. So what do you think is failing? If you continue to have these summits every year, implementation seems to be a problem. And so what will be your message this year at this year's summit?
Okay, first of all, let me correct that impression. And people have said this a number of times. You guys have just been going there, having conversations for 30 years, and we haven't seen a difference. That's not absolutely true. We have had good successes where we have had partner governments that have listened. I'll give you at least two crucial examples. One, look at what technology has done. Telecommunications has done. That was canvassed at one of the summits, and one of the presidents immediately signed up, let's open up this sector. Just imagine what the trader that is depending on that communication to get his goods across. It is phenomenal. How much has that added to the economy? It's incredible. Now let's go to the common man. The idea of pension. People used to just go and queue and die, and they can't get hold of their pension. And so the whole privatization and putting it into policy is something that was canvassed at the summit. So now people can retire, and they're sure that with an appropriate pensions agency, they collect their money. Now let's go back to, okay, so what has gone wrong and what needs to be fixed? Short of repeating myself, is to say that everyone has to collaborate and partner in the sense of the government, the businesses, because we have a role to play as well. Individuals have their role to play as well. Legislature need to put in the kind of regulatory framework that is going to allow investors to come in. And there's need for partnership between the central bank, for example, and the finance. When you pull those two together, that is when you can begin to deal with issues of inflation. One person can't do that. And all of this pulled together. So what do we need now? We need everybody to come to the table. And let's all admit, you know what? We have failed. Stop pointing fingers. Let's sit down at a round table and let's begin to fix, let's prioritize what are the three crucial things that we must do to turn around the situation. And so that's why we're canvassing what we call less is more.
Right.
Just face a few sectors, tidy them up, and we're up and running.
I think in a few minutes, the Nigerian Economic Summit commences live, and we're looking forward to hearing these conversations and these suggestions that you've highlighted. Olusola Akinboyewa, thank you so much for your time with us, and all the best. As you sit on the board of NESG, and even as all the other endeavors that you're involved in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll move over now to our correspondent, Perpetua Fasomi-Peters, who is here as well to bring us some more updates regarding the Nigerian Economic Summit. Hello, Perpetua. All right, whilst we're trying to connect with Perpetua, we will, of course, just let you know that a number of the conversations that we're having today, the key recurring word is collaboration. Stakeholder collaboration is one of the sub-themes of a much larger conversation looking at collaboration for competitiveness, stability and growth. And just, defining what inclusive development looks like, looking at what providing a secure country looks like, looking at innovation and, evolution of digitization. These are the sub-themes that will be highlighted today at the Nigerian Economic Summit. Again, we'll connect with our correspondent, Perpetua Fasomi-Peters, who's on standby to bring us more update. Hello, Perpetua.
All right, thank you so much. Well, like I said earlier, it's NES 30, and of course, we're all excited to be here. The delegates are coming in their numbers, and we're hoping for a fantastic conversation. The theme, again, like we have already said, of course, talks about collaborative action, which, of course, is what is needed for growth, competitiveness, and stability. When we talk about stability, Nigerians, of course, know what stability is and what instability really is, especially when you look at the currency, that's the fluctuating naira. And then when you talk about competitiveness, we're also looking at the oil and gas sector. I mean, we have examples of some of those things that we want to see work. And then talking about growth, I mean, we've seen a year where so many companies have had to shut down, and so many multinationals have also had to leave the country as a result of the business climate. But of course, I believe that this particular theme is a wake-up call to say we need collaboration, collaborative action. So it's not just the private sector who are thriving and trying to make things work, but we're also having the government also making things work. Well, of course, I have one of the delegates right here for this event, and he will be speaking to us, telling us more. His name is Linus Okore. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here today. This is very interesting. The 30th Nigerian Economic Summit. We're looking forward to great stuff happening today and tomorrow.
Absolutely. Now, the theme talks about, collaborative action, talking about how this is good for growth, competitiveness, and, of course, stability. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, the most important thing for me is, as a leadership coach, is that when the private sector and the public sector, come together, to work in a most collaborative environment, and each of these institutions, they do what they are supposed to do. Now, at the end of the conference, there will be a communique that will bring out key recommendations after 3 days of hard work and thinking. The expectation of this summit will be that the political class would have the boldness, the courage to execute every single recommendation, and as the fastest possible time ever, in order to be able to get this economy running like never before. For me, that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Now, talk to us. Which of these, topics, or which of these conversations sort of is something you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at, one of the pillars is leadership. And as a leadership coach, and I'll also be running a leadership clinic within the system. My thinking is that let us begin to discuss more, on the leadership judgments, that has to be taken, because the recommendations will be key, but it will require a lot of leadership judgments. It will require a lot of action to be taken. It will require a lot of execution. It will require a lot of implementation. It will require a lot of, fantastic collaboration. Do you get what I'm talking about? And follow up, to ensure that every single recommendation will happen. In fact, I started attending the Economic Summit since 2002. And, every time we have recommendations, the challenge has always been execution. And I want this, execution to be a central point to this whole process.
All right, thank you so much. He talked about execution, and I also remember when we spoke to the board member of NESG, one of the things he talked about was how that, they've been able to sort of they've done some recommendations that have, of course, been implemented, whether it's in the telecommunication sector or even, in some other sectors. And, of course, that is the hope today, that after everything, the recommendations will be implemented. And it's now back to Olive and Osaruge.
All right, thank you very much, Perpetual. Very, very interesting conversation that you had there. And of course, it also shares, how much the next 3 days promises to be really, really interesting in the discussions that are going to be happening here in the FCT. But still talking about the Nigerian Economic Summit, we're joined this morning by Wale Abioye, who is a member of the technical subcommittee at the NESG. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so since you are part of the technical subcommittee, I want our conversation to be focused on tech and its involvement in shaping the economy of Nigeria and West Africa. How much have we achieved? Where are we headed?
Okay, well, very interesting question. Over the last decade, I'm sure a lot of the growth you've seen in Nigeria and Africa has been powered by technology. And that's why it's one of the focal points of this year's summit. We have a number of areas we'll be exploring at the summit. We'll be looking at the role of AI in knowledge and also shaping the future of work. We know as well that technology has the potential to create jobs, particularly at scale for Nigeria, because again, at the summit, some of the sub-themes we'll be exploring around growth, around competitiveness, around stability. And we know if nothing else, technology actually has the potential to power growth for Nigeria and as well West Africa.
I mean, I'm glad that you've mentioned the top things that we'll be highlighting, one of them, which is igniting innovation and digital evolution. You also mentioned that there'll be a number of conversations about artificial intelligence. We're starting to see a lot of that. The artificial intelligence is here to stay, even though there are those that fear that AI is coming to take their jobs. But what would you say has been like a major challenge that we've faced as a country when it comes to our evolution with, the digital space?
Okay, well, you have to give a lot of credit to the technology sectors and the entrepreneurs driving that sector in Nigeria, because despite the odds that they face, they've powered through, driving a lot of innovation over the last decade. But some of the challenges would be around infrastructure. Infrastructure clearly in terms of the gaps in terms of connectivity. Whilst we have a lot of connectivity down south in Nigeria, when you look at the data, we still have many other parts of Nigeria that are not connected as they should be. There are also gaps in terms of power as well. And power is a key contributor to the cost of doing business in Nigeria. That's one area. Funding also is a challenge. We saw the peak of funding, particularly for the tech sector in 2021, 2022. That declined last year. We still have gaps around funding, particularly for smaller tech entrepreneurs in Nigeria. For all that we say around talent as well, we've seen many young people begin to pick up technology skills. But if you compare us to China, if you compare us to India, we still have a lot of gap to close around the depths of talent pool that we have in Nigeria.
Absolutely. I mean, so it's pretty clear that the Nigerian space and Nigerian tech space, still needs a lot of support, from government policies to actual infrastructure support. But we'll see how things go. And I believe these are some of the things that will be talked about today, and of course the next 2 days. Thank you very much, Wale, for stopping by and for speaking with us.
Thank you. I look forward to having you.
Absolutely. All right. We continue conversations here. We are going to be moving into politics now. We have a member of the PDP joining us to express himself on some of the biggest challenges facing the party as it stands. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central, live from the Federal Capital Territory. Our next conversation is going to be with a PDP chieftain, Otumba Segun Shoumi, who, of course, is joining us to discuss on the current issues concerning the PDP. Not very long ago, he was prostrating in front of Ayodele Fayose, the former governor of Washington State, seeking, some level of peace within the party. Otumba, great to see you, and great to have you join us on the show.
It's nice to be here.
Nice to have you.
Good morning, guys. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to start from you posted the video where you had gone to meet Ayodele Fayose and of course speak with him on the issues in the party. So let's start with that. How bad is it? And is the PDP as it stands? A lot of people would say it's currently irredeemable. There's no need. It should just pack up shop and go. But how bad is it in your opinion?
Well, I think that I always tell people, it's either it's a democratic organization or it's not. If it's a democratic organization, how outlandish the interest, no matter how inordinate, and they're going to push for it within the available means of either the law, the constitution, suffrage, and all of the things that go into human relationship. Within that context, I have come to the new idea that democratic organization in countries must also be
reviewed relative to the attitude, the characters of the citizens of that environment. And therefore, I like to say that the People's Democratic Party of Nigeria is the democratic microcosm of the Nigerian nation. Whatever struggle the PDP has or deals with is a reflection of the struggle that the Nigerian nation, in terms of the human characteristics that make it up. Now, is it redeemable? Of course it's redeemable. I have a feeling that this set of crises that the party is in now is going to be the last set of crises it will ever be in, because they're running to the courts. And once you move from family affairs, talking among yourself, and then you start going legalese, the likely consequence, if the courts, and I beg them not to be tired, is that they're going to make some pronouncements that is going to then define how the play will go after that, because there will be, what you call the established position of the law on issues. So, as painful as it may seem, and you saw me beg, and I'll come to that in a minute, what you're going to say and what I expect, and I really pray and beg the Nigerian nation, members of the real estate, to help us do, is to help us accept that we cannot pretend that if it is not democratic, then it is democracy. And we cannot insist that a democratic institution that is struggling with our human characteristic to manage democracy in our country will now be the one that will be, not be encouraged, helped, and even promoted, as against a scenario where we can deceive ourselves that if we put 100 people in a room and we're struggling for democratic power, that once one man says, go and sit down, everybody will go and sit down. That's not realistic. And that's not democracy. They may tolerate, let me not say the word enjoy, they may tolerate the overhang of that kind of structure for now, just like we tolerated it at the beginning of our journey in 1999 when the president of Obasanjo could just wish anything that will happen, including remove governors and put them in and all of that. But as they go on, and I pray they go on well, they're going to find out that whatever it is that is happening to PDP has a potential of happening to them in the future. So it's not an insurmountable problem. It just requires everybody to step back a little bit, elevate their play from those of a politician or politicians to that of a statesman. What does a statesman do? A statesman does precisely what I've done with Ayafayoshi, which is that when you have contending interests who are very, very angry, and they have the ability to be angry, and they also have some influence, nothing is too big a prize to beg them, to try to inspire them, to give them the idea of the greater good for all. And that's what it was, really.
Plaguing the PDP. I mean, on the face of it, we can see that River State is at the center of the conversation. River State, from Siminalayi Fubara's time up until now, maybe pre-Siminalayi Fubara,
exactly.
Right? So River State has been, but is there maybe a bigger picture that we're missing out on?
No, I think that truly people love their governors. And when a governor, like in the case of Siminalayi Fubara, when a governor is perceived to be being hounded and being prosecuted, the natural emotions of the owners of that environment, especially in an African context like ours, is to kind of like start showing up support and emotion. It's like you're beating a child that has done something wrong. There's a limit, there's a way you keep beating that child. And not everybody, the neighborhood, being Africans, will start saying, it's enough, it's enough, it's enough. And when you don't listen, then you will tilt the balance of the support from you who is scolding the child to the child that is now being perceived as being victimized. So for Rivers, again, it fits into the pigeonhole that I've described for you, which is that the attitude of a people will also have an influence on the type of democratic culture they build there. What will happen, what will be tolerable, the kinds of language, the kinds of things that they do in that environment is slightly different from what you'll expect in Akwa Ibom. And because you have to understand that there's nothing significantly happening in Rivers in terms of power passing and succession planning that didn't really happen in Akwa Ibom or didn't happen in Delta or has not happened in some other locations. And in all of those other locations, you haven't seen anything that resembles what is happening in Rivers. And I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying that you can't expect a greyhound You know, a greyhound, that dog, that animal that is very fast, you can't expect it to behave like a poodle. Now, if you are going to manage greyhounds, then you can't manage them like poodles. And it would be ridiculous for you to say a Rottweiler is barking when in the real sense of the word, a Chihuahua is just wagging his tail. Everything in nature behaves according to his own order. And therefore, what we just say is that, okay, we need to find a way to kind of say, enough, the greater good of the society must come to play, and democracy must not become a burden for the citizens who are still yet to accept or to get all their wish from democracy only because we're overheating it, we're making it a little bit too militarized, and we're doing things that could even if it's only going to make one person nervous in that environment, that has to stop. And whatever needs to happen must happen there.
There's people who say that the current FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, is described as in some quarters as a mole in the PDP. You know, his presence there is to, cause some destabilization in the party. Do you completely disagree with that narrative? And also, do you think the PDP can move forward with Nyesom Wike still an active player in the party?
No, I think anybody who describes Nyesom Wike as a mole is an illiterate. No person that is verbose, that speaks, that addresses the press, that states his position honestly and truthfully even before he plays out his hand can be described as a mole. You can find other adjectives, but what is he moling on when you already know and you can ascertain that he's in that kind of complex arrangement where he's serving in the APC government and he says he's still in the PDP? It's an unusual situation. And history is the actions of men in reverse, in retrospection. So we will have to now see how it plays out in the final, but you can't call him a mole. I do not accept that. Now, in terms of whether what he's doing is correct, or is there anything that needs to happen, or what should PDP do? I've looked at the laws, I've looked at our book, I've poured over our constitution overnight, just trying to figure out what exactly is in the law that can give us an escape. And I would say to the PDP, Claire, the way you read things and the way you expect things to be and the way things are can sometimes be different. And you have to give yourself a tunnel view to see what is before you and not only be seeing what is in your mind. What does the law say? What are the procedures? What does the Constitution say? What could potentially happen in the court? How should PDP, what will happen to Wike? I guarantee you, at some point in time, he will have to truly take a position. So let's just play it to 2026 or so, and then the campaign season starts. Would it realistically be possible for him to say he's a PDP man and then go all over the place waving the broom of the APC? That would come to.
I think I've already seen him there.
Yeah. So it will, now, when it comes to that level, you are going to find out that he himself is going to be sitting in a very difficult situation. Why? Because if we consider him, if people allege that he's a mole for PDP, or APC mole in PDP, then by inference, why can't and why shouldn't the APC themselves consider him a mole of PDP in the APC? So bottom line is, at some point in time, one has to make up his mind where he wants to belong.
And will the PDP ever take a strong position for or against Nyesom Wike, especially because you remember the role that he played in Rivers election, and you know how it seemed some form of a stumbling block to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar being able to carry out his campaigns at some point. There was just a lot of back and forth. So do you think that, the PDP will ever take a strong position for or against it?
So there's something called the Federalist Papers. And when you read the Federalist Papers, it tries to tell you that mankind did not create government because people on their own wanted it. The whole concept of government and authority was created because people would not on their own behave, except there's a compelling force insisting that this type of behavior will not be tolerated here. Now, whatever it is that happened or happens, and even is still happening in Rivers, I put the blame squarely on the side of the president, because at the level of a president of a country, you must, of a necessity, consider certain behavior, certain attitude, certain tendencies to be unright for your country. And I have said, Rivers carries significant economic access of Nigeria. No president, worth his salt, must be happy that they don't have peace there. And democracy or self-rule, however disorganized you like to say it is, societies are managed by territorial commanders. The number one territorial commander of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the president in his executive garb. Therefore, if anything breaks down there, I will not blame Wike, I will not blame Similai, I will not blame the PDP, I will not even blame the militants who are saying things that are quite unacceptable in a country that has laws. I'll blame the president on whose table the buck stops.
Yeah, I mean, there might also be some blame for the leadership of the party. I mean, currently, there's even a factional chairman, Ahmed Mohammed. Umar Damagom, of course, is still fighting.
Let me raise that quickly. There is no such thing. Our constitution and our books does not envisage that if you get suspended, like the publicity secretary and the legal advisor are told to step aside, a committee set up to go and review them. That's within our extant laws and the expectation of how an executive works. You don't have the power to be suspended by Channels TV, News Central, and then step out and do a press conference and say you suspended the owners of the TV. Now, no matter how angry you are, that's not the way it goes.
Also discuss about the strength and the validity of the allegations leveled against.
I would have preferred we talked about the Nigerian Economic Summit.
Quickly,
yes.
Olusola has been fired. He's been fired. Suspended. I take that back.
He's been told to step aside, actually, not even suspended.
Okay, so he's been asked to step aside. And been the allegations leveled against him are insubordination. They talked about especially the October 4th letter that he put out asking River citizens to vote in an election that PDP wasn't a part of. Is there maybe some strength or some validity to his argument against Damagum? Because he also raised some concerns about Damagum, especially regarding the letter to the Court of Appeal.
You see, a snake is not having the same width from the head to the tail. What that says is that you don't have authority in an executive of equal gravitas. The authority granted the chairman is slightly different from that of the secretary, slightly different from that of the organizer. By the time you get to the publicity, except you are just really silly, the publicity secretary of a political party is actually that guy that carries the intentions of the executive and populates it and gives it to the society and stands in the gap between the society and others. You don't have that kind of, it's not envisaged that you have that kind of gravitas. And if anybody says you are suspended, thankfully they set up a committee. I don't think that we should say, oh, we don't trust the process. We have a disciplinary committee. We don't trust it. We have the courts. We don't trust it. Right. You got to come to a point where you say no. You can't make things worse. Yeah, you can be angry. It's my brother, and I don't want them to suspend him. And I don't approve of the fact that they've suspended him. I've not looked at what they've said they've done. But I will also not accept that he has the right or the power to make things worse by now saying he's suspended two people. No.
But we have to still come back to this conversation. Okay. We're on a very quick break, and when we come back, more to come. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still here reporting live from the Federal Capital Territory. I'm reminded of the line, things fall apart, the center cannot hold, when I think about the People's Democratic Party and the drama that is plaguing the party. And we're joined by PDP chieftain Otumba Segun Sowunmi. Thank you very much for being here with us. You want to respond to that? Because I saw the reaction on your face when I said things fall apart.
Our greatest dip as a political party, there's a science behind. You can look at it.
Yeah.
Our greatest dip was in 2015, actually, where we lost more seats and lost more governors. And PDP is here.
Okay.
So I think that we have enough time. We don't have all the time in the world, but we have enough time to say, I can even show them a pathway But most of the time, they're just too arrogant. They don't know the amount of industry that goes into thinking. And that's why I'm thinking, okay, when you guys are ready, come and show me the pathway. Because I already know the pathway out of this crisis.
Okay, so with the suspensions and counter suspensions that have occurred in the party since Friday, I know there's going to be a meeting happening today, if I'm correct, in Abuja. What are the options that are available for the People's Democratic Party? I mean, in a way, this is the pathway that you're...
No, I will not tell them the answer to that, but I will just say that let me just try and remind them of the limitations that we have. However influential the Governors Forum is, it's not a statutory organ recognized by law. And the NEC, which is the statutory organ that they must convey, they will be smart to go to that NEC and order an early convention, because there are even limitations in the Constitution as to what that NEC can do. So it's up to them, but we will not give them more.
October 24th is, I know that. Well, till October 24th.
Look, the thing is this. People think that thinking is easy. And people think that being brave to be able to tell you this is the truth, they think it's pretty. Or people think that you can't hold an honest view without being procured, in a way that you kind of like wonder that these people really normal. The truth is, I have been here since 1998, never left one day. Obasanjo is like my dad. He left, I didn't even bother answering him. Otumagbe Gadalen is I kind of like adore him. He left, I'm still here. Do you think I have all the possibilities of what I want from them? No, it's just that I believe that we should build a democratic institution that can last. If I labor for the party, I labor because I want the African nation, the most populous black nation, to say that we also have the ability to build something that belongs to us, nurture it over time, go through its own topsy-turvy and last. I do not want a situation where we have something today and then we start all over again, and to get to the same problem, we start all over again. Why should the Democratic Party in America last forever and PDP will not last? Yeah. Why should the Republican Party last forever and PDP will not last? Why should the Labour Party in London last forever and PDP will not last? Election losses are just election losses. There are more responsibilities to a political party, like harvesting solutions, like giving the people hope, because the government of the day is going to be dealing with the reality of the day, and the citizens may be touched in tough ways. It is the duty of opposition, if you don't want that country to implode, to keep giving the people a futuristic, realistic hope that can make them hold on until the next election. Otherwise, democracy will fail.
Yeah, I mean, the questions on democracy and the strength of elections, is still going to be a huge burden with regards to the current government. APC and how they've also managed, different transitions of power, the different election sectors that we've seen. Let's talk about the Nigerian Economic Summit, where we are currently in the FCT. It's happening right here on the background of where we are.
Let me just say congratulations to us, Nigerians. Congratulations to Nigerian Economic Summit Group. I'm so excited. That's why you see me so happy. Why? Sometimes around 1993, we were in Europe. I was in Germany. There's an organization called SAP. And Professor Alios, Professor Schmelzer, and a few of the thinkers there, and I was there, began to think about the process that what will happen to Nigeria when they get into a democracy and follow private sector participation. Now, they thought up that it's best to create institutions that can help them grow the manpower, that can allow them to now begin to take charge of a private public sector-led democratic institution. And one of those institutions that was created is the NESG's group. Another one was the Lagos Business School. So when I look at it today, Ernest is dead, may so rest in peace. My friend Schmelzer, Professor Schmelzer from the University of Kiel, I don't know where he is now, if he's alive, big up to you. Professor Alios, big up to you. But can you imagine how I would feel very fully well that I knew when that thought process was going on? So I'm happy. I charge them that they haven't done enough. But if they had done enough, there won't be this many dislocation between the hope of the nation and government policies. So there are two organizations in the country that need to scale up. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group needs to scale up, not just talk of the issues, but provide solution. The second one is Nigerian Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. For any nation that cannot think up the solution to a problem before they come on the table will not survive. Imagine if we were the one dealing with what Palestinian was dealing with, or if we were the one dealing with all of the volcano and all the waters and all of that. We need to scale up. And there's no other way to do it other than in democratic government, because even if we reverted back to military rule, 200 men are trying to solve a problem, they can't solve it. You think 4 soldiers can then think it off?
So some people would say that NESG and its partnership with the Nigerian government and their policies, the thinking, grew Nigeria's economy to where it was in 2014. But something dipped right after 2014. Do you think the APC has failed in its economic policies and its partnership with the NASG since 2014?
You know, I think that now this is the bragging right for us in PDP. I hold a very strong view that the government between 1999 to 2015, everything considered, is by far the more progressive direction for the country. In 2015, the major problem that happened in 2015, and I keep advocating, anybody that comes into government and wants to form a cabinet by himself will run into trouble. The then President Buhari, I still cut my salute for him because he's done his own bit, ran into trouble because he constituted a government that was not exactly open to ideas of other people. They liked the idea of cabal. Now, this new man that is there now, Bola Tinubu, my brother, he's going to struggle in the instance, like he's struggling now. But I have a very, 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 very strong feeling that he's going to be okay.
Are you going to maybe in the foreseeable future report to the APC? The PDP I've been in
the PDP since 1998. I've actually been in the PDP before it was unregistered. When he wanted to register, it's Bengali is still alive. I've mentioned him out. Myself, Bengali, your Mohammed, your Thomas. They contemplated that maybe we should have a youth party. I said no. I said the young people, we have not learned enough democratic culture to be having a party of ours, so we should go and learn. So I've been here forever. Why have I not joined APC? I could have joined APC in 95 and Alhaji Lai Mohammed is still alive, he's hearing me. He had told me at the side of the conversation that Shegun, you are so progressive, your ideas are so progressive. Why are you not coming to the progressive party? You know what I said to him? I said any organization that cannot build its membership in an organic manner will lose its ideological underpinning. Now look at it today. You look at the APC, who is supposed to be left of center, pro people, solving the problem of the Awolowo eras, and PDP that is right of center, pro business, and suddenly it's APC that is telling people to go and take a loan to go to school. APC is what I say. So in the end, you understand that because they didn't stick to building their organization in an organic manner, they have morphed so much that they themselves can't even recognize themselves in the mirror.
There's still so much that we need to look at.
I know.
APC and the PDP, I want to invite you again before we leave Abuja that you grace us with your presence.
You guys are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I'm proud of how the organization is moving, and I kind of feeling that some other people are better watch their backs. You guys are coming to kind of like take the show.
Thank you so much for your time with us this morning, and thank you to our audience for joining us. We'll be back again same time tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. with Breakfast Central. But of course, for the rest of the day, we'll be connecting with the Nigerian Economic Summit. But for now, we'll hand over to our Lagos studios. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osalbi Ogbon.